and welcome. We were just discussing before I came up here that we began the planning for this event in October of 2022 and had originally planned for it to be a February event, but it had to be moved to March and then April. And here we are on May 1st. So welcome, thank you. An enormous amount of planning has gone into this, and I want to begin by thanking the people that have made this possible. My name is Gary Bouchard, and I'm the Executive Director of the Gregory J. Grapponi 04 Humanities Institute here at St. Anselm, and we are a very proud co-sponsor of this event. And today is the 8th anniversary of the passing of Greg Grapponi, for whom our institute is named. And this kind of program, Our Fire is Stronger Than Your Bombs, is so fitting to Greg, who really understood and lived a life understanding that discourse and art and the humanities are stronger than any violence. So I want to honor him today and then thank the rest of the people who did so much to make this possible. First of all, New Hampshire Humanities, in partnership with the National Endowment for the Humanities, and this all began in September, October with a call from Michael Haley Goldman, the Executive Director of New Hampshire Humanities, who you'll meet momentarily, to Ann Kamen and myself, and began to make all of the connections. We want to thank Dartmouth College Leslie Center for the Humanities, our partner up at Dartmouth, who generously sponsored the artist fees. Dartmouth College Baker Berry Library, who sponsored the printing of the posters that you see around the room and hosted the original showing along with the digital exhibit back in March. A special thanks to Hannah Lilov and Veronica Yuducha, who you're going to hear from momentarily, and their colleagues for their work on this exhibit and providing the opportunity to bring this from up in Hanover down to St. Anselm today. And finally, the New Hampshire Institute of Politics, Executive Director Neil Levesque, for hosting us here today, and Ann Kamen, who has been the field general who has kept us all going in the right direction through the postponements, through the logistics, making sure that the art and the people got here and that people are even going to be able to zoom in from Ukraine. So Ann, thank you for everything that you've done to pull this together today. So I'm just going to give you a glimpse at how the program is going to go so that you can be prepared for what you're going to experience. I hope you've already had an opportunity to walk around the room and sample the artwork. The first part of the presentation is going to be an explanation and a presentation of this exhibit that Veronica and Hannah are going to provide. And they'll be joined by way of Zoom from Kiev, Ukraine, by Zhenya Polosina? Close, right? I worked on these very hard before. And Anna Ivanenko of the collaborative group Serigraph Studio. And Michael Haley Goldman is going to moderate the first part of that program. The second part of the program features poetry readings by Veronica, Hannah, and they'll be joined as well by Lada Kolomiets, and they'll be reading poetry, and underneath that poetry there will be musical accompaniment provided by Joe DeLoe and Don Davis here from St. Anselm. That'll be part 2 of the program, and then the third part of the program will be Q&A, where you can ask them questions, engage with the artist about their work, or about anything that you want to ask, and there'll be students with microphones in the room, and I will call you out as you ask questions, and we'll try to wrap up in and around 5:30. So that is the order of operations as we proceed. Now, all I have to do is get the right people up on the stage and step out of the way. So the moderator for the program is going to be Michael Haley Goldman, who I mentioned, Executive Director of New Hampshire Humanities. Proud to say that I am a board member of New Hampshire Humanities and get to work with Michael on a regular basis. And was even back in spring of 2021, spent many, many hours of my life on a search committee searching for just the right person to lead New Hampshire Humanities. And when we found Michael, and the more we came to know him, we knew that we were going to be hiring somebody who was going to be innovative and make all of the right connections, as he did with Dartmouth and St. Anselm and New Hampshire Humanities and NHIOP to bring this program together. So Michael arrived in New Hampshire. He's relatively new in September of 2021 from the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C., where he led a digital innovation team that explored the impact of emerging technologies on history, education, informal learning, and digital humanities as director of the Future Projects. And he has been a joy to work with since he's been in New Hampshire. If you haven't had an opportunity to meet him and learn more about what we're doing at New Hampshire Humanities, tonight would be a good time. Hanna Lilov is a co-curator and Leslie Center Faculty Fellow at Dartmouth College. And Veronica Yaduka is a co-curator and graduate student in the Comparative Literature program at Dartmouth College. Michael, I'm going to happily hand this off to you and begin part one of our program. Thank you all.
Thanks, Gary. Hi, everybody. I got way too much credit there for making an email connection to really amazing people. So I'm going to not talk too much. Really happy to have you all here this evening. I'm going to turn it over to Hanna to talk about this art exhibit that you two put together. Can you tell us about that?
Okay, so we're diving right in.
Yeah,
right?
we're going straight in. I'm not much for small talk.
Okay, so I will pass the word over to Veronica Yaduka right here, who will start and introduce you to this wonderful exhibit that we brought here today.
Thank you, Hannah, and I'm very pleased to be here today, and I'm very happy that the exhibit can be shown here at St. Anselm College. So in February 2023, The New Yorker published a short documentary film by Nadia Parfan titled, "I Didn't Want to Make a War Film." And I will paraphrase this title and say, I didn't want to make an exhibition of war posters. Actually, none of us would ever want to work with such a topic. We would wish such a topic simply didn't exist. But today, it is especially important to speak about it and to talk about the war in Ukraine, to call a spade, to talk about the full-scale Russia's invasion of Ukraine that began more than 1 year ago. February 24th is now forever the day that divided the lives of all Ukrainians in half. We really didn't believe that there could be a full-scale war in our country, that the whole country would wake up at 5 a.m. on February 24th to massive shelling of the entire territory, all major cities in the east, west, north, south, and central Ukraine. We all woke up to the sounds of explosions in a new reality from which there was no hiding place. We updated the news every minute. We began to experience an overwhelming amount of pain. From the first day of the full-scale war, I observed how my Ukrainian cultural community turned into a network of mutual help, how everyone in it tried to speak the language they knew well. Here I mean the language of their profession. Musicians immediately began to create and spread short musical phrases. Actors recorded videos, poets wrote poems, translators translated them and translated incredible amounts of news, while illustrators turned these news into pictures. I immediately realized that thanks to the illustrations shared on social networks, I was often learning the news almost simultaneously with the official news channels. Illustrators began to react to the events that were happening almost every hour in Ukraine, and they were making sketches, drawings, and illustrations, sharing them with English captions on Instagram and Facebook. Compared to photographs, illustrations are not a visual document of events. However, it is illustrations that sometimes become an even more effective medium for spreading news than photographic evidence. Because when the person sees shocking photograph, often their mind simply blocks the terrible picture, of reality and doesn't allow the information to be perceived. In this case, illustrations, which are often very literal reproductions of photographs or videos, become a more effective way to convey information even about traumatic and horrific events that occur during war. Ukrainian illustration has become another media channel that reported events in Ukraine at lightning speed, regardless of whether it was day or night. And it has also become the powerful Ukrainian media that is trusted abroad. This trust was a result of the illustrators' long-term cooperation with institutions, museums, and media all over the world, such as Edvig, The Economist, MacPo, Henrik Berg Foundation, Financial Times, The Globe and Mail, Forbes, MoMA, etc. The exhibition Our Fire is Stronger Than Your Bombs presents the works of 8 well-known Ukrainian illustrators who have been working as reliable media all year round since February 24, 2022, and are among the first to spread news. They are Богдана Давидюк, Женя Полосіна, Анна Іваненко, Анна Сарвіра, Олег Рищенко, Михайло Скоп, Марі Кінович, Оксана Дрочковська. Most of them spent this year of resilience in Ukraine and were constantly engaged in volunteer work. In this exhibition, most of the works are the result of the actual transposition of news messages to the dimension of the poster. Selecting these 20 works, we tried to create a chronology of events that took place in Ukraine last year, and not only to mention terrible numbers and events, but also to present the stories of certain people. The exhibition combines several lines: the Ukrainian cities that were occupied and liberated, personal stories of people in different circumstances, military and civilian life, and metaphorical images that represent collective portraits.
Yeah, so there are actually many meaningful elements in this exhibit, and I will try to guide you on some of the very particular posters. So if you look on that side, you can see right under the screen these 2 posters with Russia's president, right, Vladimir Putin. And one of them shows him on the horse, and it says, if it was Putin's war, and then there is another poster, and where Putin is lying on the ground, and it's written, it would end up fast, right? So the message is quite clear. It's about the collective responsibility of people, that it's not just Putin's war, as many journalists and many people worldwide used to call the large-scale invasion in its early days, but hopefully not more. So there is an interesting story with this poster. Originally, it was pasted on the window. It was like on the window. So, and it was pasted with using the Scotch tape and using these crosses with the Scotch tape. Perhaps you saw that on the news that people in Ukraine actually put the Scotch tape on their windows in order to protect the windows from the blasts during the missile strikes. So in the original exhibition at Dartmouth, there was a window in the exhibition space. So we attached the poster to the window with the Scotch tape, with these crosses, so that actually people who visit the exhibition could see how this looks like, how the windows of thousands of Ukrainians back in my home country now look like. So we also attached these posters you see to these boards, and most of them are on the boards, not on the walls, and it also conveys the semblance to a street space. Like in Europe, also in Ukraine, we see these ad boards or ad pillars in the streets where people will usually attach different advertisements or different posters. So that's why this kind of arrangement creates the feeling of a streetscape. The overall layout of the exhibition is almost chronological. So we start from the earliest days of the war. Like if you see on that wall, you can see this red poster in the middle between the two young girls. It shows a mother with a son. They are fleeing Irpin. Irpin is the suburb of Kyiv that was occupied and bombed during the early days of the war. And then we move on. And so this poster is actually titled Irpin, and it was made by Oksana Дрочковська. So, you know, there are 8 million refugees now in Europe, across Europe. And in the very first day of invasions, the lines on the Ukrainian border, specifically between Ukraine and Poland, or Romania and Hungary, they were so long that New Yorker called it Ukrainian Exodus. And some people, including women with babies, had to wait up to 36 hours on the border. The posters, around two posters on the left and on the right of this one, showing two young women, were made by Oksana Drachkovska, and they are dedicated to the tragic loss of young life in the bombardments. So here, to the right, you can see Yulia Zdanovska. Yulia Zdanovska was a silver medalist at the 2017 European Girls Mathematics Olympiad. She was an instructor for Teach for Ukraine in her early 20s, and she died in a fire caused by a Russian missile launched on Kharkiv, her hometown, which is less than 25 miles away from the Russian border, so it's basically helpless against Russian missiles because the anti-aircraft system simply cannot down a missile in, like 2 seconds it takes to reach Kharkiv. So Yulia had a chance to leave, and go elsewhere in Europe, but she decided to stay in Kharkiv and volunteer. And she was actually working as a volunteer in a residential area in Kharkiv when the missile hit. So unfortunately, she won't be able, to earn any mathematical models and become a mathematical genius anymore. In honor of Yulia Zdanovska, the MIT Department of Mathematics has launched a program called Yulia's Dream, which is a free math enrichment program for Ukrainian high school students and refugees. To the right of this poster, you can see a young Ukrainian gymnast, Katerina Dyachenko. She was only 11. She was a would-be pride of Ukraine, but she also fell victim to the Russian invasion. Katerina was killed in a missile strike on her home in Mariupol in late March 2022. And then we move on, and then we see the Russian soldiers painting their Z's on their tanks, and then we see the Russian looters carrying fridges and New Balance sneakers. And then we see a Ukrainian soldier and this Tao of peace. And actually, we have this paradoxical situation where all of us want peace, but the peace cannot be restored without weapon. And that's why the Tao of peace is carrying this anti-aircraft missile ammunition. These two posters, right behind the lectern, are the only two metaphorical posters in this collection. They do not depict the current events, but rather the myth. And you can see on the right, we have David and the Goliath from the Bible, right, where Ukrainians are obviously represented by David, who is fighting this Goliath with the Ukrainian spirit and resilience. And then we can move on to another side. And again, this is the chronology. This is already summer. So Kherson, this is the liberation of Kherson that was occupied almost until August 2022. And then we see Ukrainian soldier fighting with these Russian venomous snakes in Bakhmut, which is basically the hell on earth right now. After this poster, we can see two in red colors by Anna Ivanenko, who will later join us on Zoom. The first one shows children studying in the bomb shelter. Because, the school didn't stop in Ukraine after the full-scale invasion broke out. So kids would go to school, and then when you have the air raid alarm sound, everybody will just go to the bomb shelter and continue studying, biology, math, English, whatever. Or if you are, being homeschooled, you will still hide between the walls in your apartment, or you will go down to the bomb shelter and continue studying. Then again, we see refugees fleeing the city. Then we have Mariupol Drama Theater, which I'm sure you heard about. There were hundreds of people sheltering in the bomb shelter right underneath the Mariupol theater, many women and children, and there was actually the word children written in Russian right in front of the theater. It was visible from above. It was visible to the pilots of this fighter jet. But of course they saw it, but they ignored it and they dropped bombs. What is also I cannot wrap my head around it, is that now Russia is trying to restore this drama theater in Mariupol. They actually put up all these fences around it showing great Russian writers. And then you have this basically mass grave inside of this fence, and they're pouring concrete onto it to make a new building on top of all those people dead. Then these are the events in September when the mass grave in Izum in Kharkiv region was discovered. The last poster but one, the last but one, all those phones on the tree. So when the villages in the east of Ukraine were liberated, Ukrainian soldiers found those phones that were just nailed to the tree because Russian soldiers, Russian occupiers were taking these phones away from people so that they would not be able to contact their relatives in the rest of Ukraine or read the news of what was going on, and they would just nail those phones to the tree. Nobody knows what happened, actually. You can imagine what happened to those people. And then the very last poster, we can barely see it in the slide, and I think it's somehow only emphasizes the topic of this poster. These are kids on the playground in the Kyiv neighborhood, in Kyiv downtown, during one of the blackouts in November. So the kids are playing on the playground wearing these vests so that other people and the drivers, passing by could see them because it was blackout, so there is no electricity in town. And this was the poster by Zhenya Polosina, who will also be joining us by Zoom. So you can see this kind of chronological layout as it guides us through the first war of the large-scale invasion. Russians regularly shell civilian and critical infrastructure across Ukraine, which is considered a war crime. And just to give you a very simple number, by mid-December 2022, Russia had fired over 1,000 missiles and drones at Ukraine's energy grid. So hours-long blackouts, no electricity, no heating, no internet, no cell signal, were a reality for Ukrainians this winter. Fortunately, this is no longer the case. So starting from March, our power grid is back to its capacity, so there are no more blackouts yet. You can learn more about each of these posters and about the illustrators if you come up to this little poster over there right by the table and you scan the QR code. It will take you to the digital exhibit, which is hosted by Dartmouth College. And when you click on the poster, you will be able to read the background information of what event is depicted and more about the illustrators. And now I would like to pass the word back over to Michael, who will introduce us to two illustrators that we will zoom now in from Kyiv, right?
And they have already joined us, so thank you
Oh,
both for
perfect.
the explanation. I cannot stress enough, I hope you'll take time after the program ends to take a look at these posters and to go online and see. So you've already gotten a good overview of it. But think about what each individual poster means, and these as kind of, I don't know, how many did you go through to pick these 20?
Oh, maybe more than 60.
Yeah, so these are just a few of those posters that tell the story, and I love the way you both talked about the fact that it tells the story in a different way than photographic evidence. And so think about that as you take a look through these after the program's over. So without further ado, I do want to introduce our next guest, and I'm going to look back there, so I'm looking at them, although I look like I'm looking over your head, so just, you can focus on them. But I'm really pleased that we have a chance to talk to two of the illustrators themselves. We have Zhenya Polosina, who is an illustrator based in Kyiv, working on social themes, often human rights. And she's been doing that before the start of the war. So that, everything from torture in prisons to the reports at the Kiev Pride March. She draws from media and books. You might have seen her work in the New Statesman and Financial Times, Globe and Mail, Forbes Ukraine, and a project called LGBTQ Military, which we hopefully will hear a little bit more about in a moment. And we're also joined by Anna Ivanenko, who is an illustrator also based in Ukraine and also works with media and books. Anna's focus is on form and space, so when you look at the posters that she's added to this collection, think about that as part of it. You might have seen her work in The New Yorker, the Globe and Mail, Deutsche Welle, and Old Lion Publishing. So these are both people who have done an incredible amount of work with an incredible amount of range, and so I'm hoping you both, thank you for joining us. Are you all set up over there?
Yeah, hello. Thank you very, very much for having us. We are very honored and happy to be today at this event. So thank you very much, and hope you hear us well and see us well.
You sound great. Thank you for joining us with this connection, and we'll hope it holds steady for us. I think I'd just like to start you off. You know, I'm kind of the representative of the every person here in the room. Most of us are not people who have experienced life under a full-scale invasion, and I'm hoping you both wouldn't mind talking a little bit about how that influenced your daily life, your artistic life. What did that mean for you in a way that we can try to get our heads around here in the room?
Sure. I guess it is like it is not an experience that you expect to have, even with all the years and all of our experience as we worked with different NGOs before. We started to work in like 2015 with Art Fund Izolacja, which was from Donetsk region. So we had a lot of experience of communicating with people who were who had to flee from Donetsk region in 2014, 2015. So it's not like we didn't experience. Yes, we were actually witnesses of beginning of the war. Yeah, because we had experience to communicate with people who were affected by it. But still, you don't expect it. You hear these stories. We heard all these stories from our friends who had to leave Donetsk and Makivka and other cities in the east of Ukraine. But like with all that knowledge, you never expect that it will really can happen to you too. So I guess you cannot prepare yourself to this kind of experience. And since the beginning, we made this scope mechanism. We started to draw every day. We started to draw things, like to make illustrations in the 24th, like from the first, not hours, but from the first day. And it.
Oh my.
Okay, so that was an unexpected dip in connectivity. Oh, okay, you're back. Can you hear us still? We lost you for just a second.
Yeah, sure, yeah, we can hear you.
So I'm trying to remember. So you should finish your thought on that. I mean, so you had just said, you know, you don't expect this to happen to you, but then this is something that changes your everyday activity. So hopefully you can pick up your train of thought without too much.
Yeah, I was saying that doing the illustration to drawing became great coping mechanism for both us, for me and Anna, because we started to do our illustrations from the first day, like from the first day of full-scale invasion, and we started to documentate by like small comics, small, not like graphic novels, but small, very small graphic novels, everything we see, and our experience and the experience of our friends, and that helped us with to work with our emotions through the first months, I guess. And if we are talking about how the war affects our everyday working life, is, I guess, the main thing is that we used to work with a lot of themes. We used to be passionate about a lot of stuff and talked through our illustrations about them. But now, when you put on weight what is more important, you may almost always choose to talk about the war. So it's the main theme of all we do right now.
Yeah, it's like I used to abstract arts, and I wanted to explore something about it and draw more like just games of plastics and games of forms and games of color, but it is not gonna happen till the victory. And probably a lot.
I guess a lot of our colleagues experience the same. We used to work with adult illustration, but you can see in Ukraine art scene the amazing children illustrators who've done a lot of amazing books, children books, and now they draw about the war because it is important for them to communicate the truth about it, and the illustration is our way to talk to the audience to spread the information.
So it is actually, you're anticipating one of my questions. I think, Anna, I noticed looking at some of your online work that the posters you have in the show are very, very different stylistically and tonally than some of the things that you have done in the past. How did that change for you? How did you think about the work you were doing for these posters differently, or did that just grow naturally out of the way that you were responding to the situation?
Well, as Zhenya said, it became kind of coping mechanism. It became a medicine, a pill, like ability to draw something that you see, something that you experienced or heard about. It's a way to live through it. It creates some kind of distance from what you what you experienced, and it can it can help. And since the very first day of full-scale invasion, we started to just draw what we see, and it was just easier, yes, to draw it in this sketchy way, sketchy style, as you can see on my posters, and it became very good answer to how can I draw something like something that I see, experienced, or hear quickly and easy. I don't know. So it was obvious for me.
And you had both talked about a little bit about the idea of that, going from drawing a wide range of things to really being focused on the war, that you really had to address that in your art. Did it change how you thought about your audience, or what audiences you were hoping to see these posters?
I guess, yeah, sure. For now, I guess we have two separate ways to communicate. We communicate to people in Ukraine, and it is about. And when I say we, I guess I can say, like, for example, for our friends illustrators, that yeah, we have a lot of illustrators friends, and we share pretty same experience with. When we communicate inside Ukraine, we can talk about experience that we share, all of us share. We can help, I don't know, is it helping, but we try to cheer people or reflect something that help, not maybe on purpose, but that can help to live through something or memorate something or documentate and archivate something. But when we talk to audience outside of Ukraine, the main thing is to inform, to share our experience, because we're like living persons in Ukraine, and this. As we see, after a year of full-scale invasion, when me, Anna, other illustrators are just talking about our experience, drawing what we see, it talks to people outside the Ukraine because they see that we are real persons and we are, like, for example, artists, and they are artists, and it became more, not relatable, but more personal to people, and it is important to us to show that, like, we are real people, we are still here, and we try to do. I don't know. I guess I lost my mind.
No,
Something what I said.
No, that makes sense, right? I mean, it's giving an identity in some sense, right? You're giving a face and through your work to what we see about in a very different way through news and other media. Jenny, one of the things I did want to ask about was the LGBTQ military, the poster and that project. Why did you pick that as a subject with everything urgent going on around the war? Why was that one of the areas for you to focus on?
As I said, before the war, I had a lot of the full-scale war. I had a lot of things that were very important to me to talk about, and the rights of LGBT plus community in Ukraine was one of them. I also always drew on Kyiv Pride marches, for example, graphic reportages from them, and it was an important part of my practice. Yes, and now. For me and for Anna, it is important to show that Ukrainian army is not some steel and one kind of man institution that is very diverse, and in the first place to show it in Ukraine, because when we talk about military people in army, we imagine some kind of figure. And now in Ukraine, people there that are serving for Ukraine, they are very different, and most of them are not professionally military. And with LGBT plus military, it is important to show that they are there too, and for example that there are a lot of women in Ukrainian army, and that it is not homogeneous, like not
Homogeneous,
one
yes.
way,
Not smooth.
it's diverse, not the opposite word of diverse. It is diverse, and it is important to remember this because I think that it is important to remember this and point this. And as I have instruments, I prefer to do it.
So one last question for you, and again, thank you both for taking the time out and zooming in for this as a program. I suspect no one knew that this was going to be a year later we would be still in this full-scale invasion. This is not what anyone anticipated. Have you seen the ways that this kind of process of thinking about and coping with and responding to the invasion through art, has that changed for you over the course of the last more than a year? And how has it changed, if it has?
Well, I don't think it changed a lot.
I guess it became more structured because
Maybe.
at first months, all of us in Ukraine, everything in Ukraine became more structured because now we have the ways to do things. Like in the first weeks of full-scale invasion, we all didn't know what to do. We were in bomb shelter in Kyiv, and we accidentally met a graphic designer from Kyiv, good graphic designer, that started in this bomb shelter. Absolutely accidentally, and we spent almost 2 weeks, all of us there, and he started volunteer group where he gathered all the designers from all over Ukraine online to do visual information for anyone who asked to help Ukraine inside, in different initiatives that needed graphic information. They all started to do it, and it was very chaotic, and it was everything was very chaotic. And then everything became more structured. I guess everyone's still doing the same things. Not everyone, but a lot of people still doing a lot of the same things. But it became a routine, not a panic running around and doing something in stress. Still stress, but more routine every day.
Well,
But people have different experience. I know many illustrators that used to panicky draw something like us, but many of illustrators couldn't do anything, couldn't draw for months, like
Yeah. Somebody froze.
Yeah.
In this year, somebody from our illustrators community joined the army and now don't draw, but
Serve.
serve, yes, serve Ukraine. So everything became more not understandable, but we know what to do and we just do. A year ago, we started to figure out what to do.
And it was much more scary.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it was much more scary at the beginning, or is it much more scary as it developed?
It was for us, it was much more scary at the beginning because we didn't know what will happen and what is happening. But generally, it's much more scary, I guess, now, because if you think what had changed this year after today, what was year ago, the main thing is that thousands people were alive and millions of houses weren't destroyed. And as we are not in stress, we are all in stress, but now it's not panic like in the first day, but in the other hand, now we all, I guess, have to live with a lot of more grief, because now we know everything that had happened for this year. We didn't know a year ago. It was scary, but now we know. We are not in panic, but we have to live with this.
Yeah, the moment where stress and grief becomes normalized, which is a scary thought in and of itself. I think we're going to go into the next section, but I wanted to say thank you on behalf of everyone here for not only for being on and talking with us and helping us think through this, but also for the art that you've created and the way you've been telling the story of what's happening in Ukraine. So thank you both, and stay well, and we hope to be able to talk with you again.
Thank you very much.
For inviting us.
Thank you for having us.
So we're going to move into the poetry section of the evening. That's why I'm going to be stepping off the stage. And I would like to give my seat to Lada Kolomiets, who is the professor at the Shevchenko National University of Kiev and visiting professor at Dartmouth College. Please take my seat. Thank you both. And thanks everyone for being here tonight, and I look forward to talking to you afterwards.
Thank you, Michael. And I would also like to take this moment and please join me in welcoming our musicians who will accompany our reading with music. It's Joan Delow, an award-winning international performer, composer, and session pianist. Joe recently won the 2022 Tally Award. And Don Davis, who plays saxophone, clarinet, flute, and percussion. Don teaches woodwinds at the Manchester Community Music School. So they will kindly accompany our reading tonight. And just a couple of words before we start. So we will introduce you to the poetry of 5 contemporary Ukrainian poets today. 2 men, Artur Dronь, Max Lezhov, who are both now serving in the armed forces of Ukraine. 3 women, Natalka Marynchak, Halina Kruk, Svetlana Diduch-Romanenko, very well-accomplished Ukrainian poets, writers, and translators. Natalka Marynchak has been in Kharkiv all this time. Halina Kruk is in Lviv, and Svetlana Diduch-Romanenko too, right? Yes, so without much further ado, I think I will start the reading. the Izium Eucharist. These are our bodies, which are given up for us, but no sins shall be forgiven. These are our bodies that give up so easily when being pulled from the ground. These are our wounds and our crosses here, and these are the bodies which are given up for us only. Now you can see clearly we're just like your Son, but no sins shall be forgiven. Look, the same bones emerge, the same blood and water, but no sins shall be forgiven. Listen, the same scream, the same silence. That's what the Izium Eucharist looks like. These are our wounds and our crosses here. The living dig up the dead, saying, these are our bodies, our own bodies. We look very much like your Son. These are our bodies, look, our own bodies. We have long become like your Son. So many bodies, look, so many. We are your younger son, who shall not forgive it. Before the line, take and keep this love that spreads like blackberries. The surgeon's loyalty, so childish, doggish, these tears I will not deplete. To reach the line, mapping the footprints, to hold the line, holding on to each other, and to stay in October forever, as if by order. For this love, blunt like a knife, this bitter love that becomes yours, rests on those on the line and those beyond it. The mother. You shall now become a man of rock, a solid and sturdy man, slightly chipped. As I always told you, not a stone of stumbling, not a cornerstone, but a rock that river won't cut through. Now both of us know there are no vacations from war, only farewells. May each of us who added to your tears also add firmness to your body of rock. It's not a farewell, but let me tell you this. I'm always on your shoulder, the world's softest child. From now on, you're a rock. Amen. Grandma, don't tell me where you are. Tell me this. Has the wheat been thrashed there? Crops won't be harvested in Donbass, they said on the news. But your grandpa did not believe it, so neither did I. September 1 was like any September 1. The kids went back to school, the little one to preschool. I wept at first. I didn't want to attend the school assembly, but your grandma went, and so did I. I cry easily, you know. The kids were dressed in suits. The little one had ribbons in her hair. But this September 1, someone had no suit anymore. Someone had no tears left to cry. Someone had no grandchildren left. Oh God, oh God. Don't tell me where you are. Tell me this. Has the rain come there? We had some yesterday, but not much. It was a gentle rain, so gentle you could take a child's hand and walk together along the road. When we take off our bulletproof vests, helmets, filled jackets, soft shells and gloves,
and eat tangerines next to the makeshift stove resembling children. I sometimes think that you are in the room next door. In the village, a local woman said to her child, "Come on, mommy's little boy." But each of us looked back. I wanted to give you a bike after the war, just as you asked for, with a basket and a rag to shop for groceries. It felt sad to be the first one to ask what we dreamed of. No, I do not know how deep the Dnipro is, but I do know, Badi, that the world we tried to protect is so weird. Our last day started, but all the grocery stores were closed, as luck would have it. Our last shelling finished. A bicycle bell was ringing in my ears. In old times that came at no cost, Holy John Paul II said in Lviv, "Rain falls down, children grow up." Your Holiness, John Paul II, I grew up under that rain, but this winter is so violent and the cost is so high that only snow and soldiers are falling down. Soldiers fall down, children grow up. Soldiers fall down, children grow up. We argued yet again when we shall welcome you. But you know, Bethlehem was shelled and bombed both on the 25th of December and the 7th of January. There is no manger, no lamps, no maternity home, no nursery, no playground. When you grow up and start talking, please ask your mom to tell my mom how she should survive it all. The first letter to the Corinthians. Love is patient, love is kind. It is not jealous, is not pompous. Love is terrified like a beast, but it perseveres. Love could give up and abandon it all, but it perseveres. Sometimes love has gunshot wounds to its legs, or bullet fragments lodged in them. Tourniquets squeeze love's legs, or it has no legs anymore. Then love's friends carry love. Love digs trenches and lives in them. It gnaws ice from the bottle cut in half when it gets thirsty at -4. Love takes up combat duty, gets into position with its hernias, fevers, prostatitis, with blast injuries, asthmas and allergies, with a high probability of not making it back, with thoughts about the most significant one. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love can distinguish by ear the shots of rocket launchers, the strikes of mortar shells, and the movement of tanks. Love's eyes hurt when it stares into the thermal imager for too long. Love wakes up at night when the mice in the dugout crawl under its field coat. Sometimes love vomits for alone in the trees after a heavy combat. Every now and then it closes the eyes of its friends. Love wraps them up in sleeping bags and carries them away. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For sometimes the shelling is over, and friends close love's eyes, wrap it up in a sleeping bag, and carry it away, and then it passes to the living. Thank you.
Natalka Marinchak. And each of us will have a separate war. Frowsy, personal. Everyone needed a wall, one's own wall to endure. The wall of the varsity, the palace of industry, the city council, the wall that in your imagination is the center of the universe, the center of your personal rockfall, the place of strength, the place of your fall, the place of your awareness and sufferance, the place where you were born and died, and in the end have trampled on death. Everyone will have their own story of broken paths, of breathlessness. Everyone will have their own defended territory of roaring and laughing. I now have a heart of reinforced concrete. It does not know pity nor comfort. Instead of the Bibles and Psalters, we hold our telephones, which reveal to us all the signposts and all the roadblocks. And we pray, clutching a piece of plastic and metal, muffling our deep groans and recollections in the middle of brushwood days. Instead of bread and wine, we long for hardtack and drinking water. Save me and my freedom from every corner, from every scaffold, from every phone, from every place. Save me, O Lord, because I will stand here until the end, keeping the defense of this city, holding the shield over this place. Who are you? He asks, but I don't know what to say. I'm the one who cannot sleep nor eat. I'm the one who finds the light in places where it is dreadful to stand or sit. I'm the one who collects oneself and goes. The one who loves too much this factory, this country, and this city. Every night, I say the names in prayer of everyone I know. Protect them, O Lord. Give them full strength. Take care of Maxim, Sergei, Andrei, Artem, Oleg, Sergei, Sava, Alexander, Mariana, Anna, Maria, newborn Dmitro, sick Olena, unwell Alexei. Take care of them all. Of all to whom your hand can reach, of everyone for whom you are the last hope, and of Nadia, who is expecting a baby and whose name means hope. Take care, too. Take care of them all. Do you hear me? A whole country of ripe names that should withstand, resist, and survive. Give them firm ground under their feet. Give them the strongest embrace, and those who will not surrender, give them. Let them be with these reliable ones. Let them not become prey. Every night, majestic walls grow out of the names, the walls of houses and streets, villages and cities. What is there in our broken villages and cities? Anna, Irina, Horpina, they are no more there. What is there in our burnt buildings? There are toys left in the gardens. Whose toys are these? Sergei's, Yevgeny's, Maxim's, Tetiana's, Olena's, Sarah's. What is it under the stooped heavens? It's the last fear dying. Whose was it? Sergei's, Artem's, Olena's, Olga's, Marina's, Mariana's, Maria's. Halina Kruk. I wrote there on sedatives, back on painkillers. I'm sorry, this is, the poem has a title, To and Back. I wrote there on sedatives, back on painkillers. There were no other routes. I felt so hurt, broken down, as if I could pierce the plane's skin with my sharp edge. The hotel interior looks perfect to the smallest detail, and beautiful are the bodies of men and women, my interlocutors. War does not fit in with a world in peace. As mutilation with an evening dress, too heavy a look, too sharp a word, too brutal effect. We'd better close the eyes of death with your own palm, oh dear, because you are brave enough, you are closer to it. For difficult conversations, we have a special person and a special room we have with a separate entrance and exit, so please, do not do it here. Beautiful young bodies jump into the canal waters, thirsty for life and love, bathed in sunshine and laughter, perfect, daring as those pictures from German pre-war leaflets about a healthy mind in a healthy body. Selected grains they are, without any defect, as once we were, poised, full of love, in the face of death. I am saying to you, love me, as if there will never be enough light for us to find each other in this world. Love me, as long as we believe that death turns a blind eye to us, pretending to not see. But spying is she, from now on, always and everywhere, and knowing that we are unable to come. The war cares about our future. That's what they say. That's how they see it. When you call from the war, I hear the birds screeching over your voice, and I realize the world still exists. I return in the bus of quiet children, silent mothers, among the clutches of winter clothes from distant lands, where they were unhappy but safe. Sad, looking back, where every night they waited for transfer to their stations, and wanting desperately to meet anybody, at least someone, who would confirm that their city still existed, that all of this is not a fiction, a house drawn by kids under the sun, because everyone knows how to draw the sun, but to draw the house, not everyone knows how. But to draw a dad or a mom, not everyone can. It will take us a long time to regain the pre-war knowledge and skills, even longer than the way home from various countries, longer than it takes to forget the sound of explosions, the scream of someone dying, an empty water bottle, one for all of us hiding in that basement, shared with those who remained there forever. A boy draws a cat without a leg, and the people who did not come out, and himself he silently draws with a red felt tip pen. The red screams for everyone, and the black buries everyone who did not come out. The bus is taking us home through the night, in spite of the memory of a roadside, regardless of our fear that no city or home is anymore there. All you can do is to say a prayer. Death may happen to make an error, not recognizing who is hers. Here she goes along the field paths. Her heart is rock dry, congealed in hardness, her sickle dulled. Unbridled grasshoppers are churning up, and summer unlocks the safety belts, but do not let this beguile you. Don't be lulled by the aroma of rustling herbs, by the abyss of sky, and above the shadow a bird striving up and up. Those shadows and silences in the steppes are brief. Snuggle your body into the land you love, relieved. Past she goes, does not see, gone. Let there be someone to beg for you from death. Let a wounded grasshopper carry you away. Let it bring you alive. In the blazing summer, it crawled out of glow to those clean waters and wild grass unmowed, having lived through everything there. And Jesus went up to the Mount of Olives. And Jesus went up to the Mount of Olives in the town of Bucha, in the town of Irpin, in the urban village of Hostomel, in the village of Motyzhin, in the urban village of Borodyanka, in the city of Chernihiv, in the city of Kharkiv, in the long-suffering city of Mariupol, and asked God the Father, "Let this cup run out on me." Crucified on a pectoral cross from the breast of an unidentified body, Anno Domini 2022, in a heartless world, heaven and earth are passing by. One more poem, Світлана Дідух-Романенко. We were told, export only the most valuable, and we took our children out. However, all the children are ours now. Column, temporary displacement. In the customs declaration of war, the former exporter of bread is now the leader in the export of salt on the cheeks of Ukrainian women. We left our computers at home, but each of us is now a hard disk, data carrier, memory card for hundreds of terabytes, which cannot be formatted by daily bombardment. We are witnesses of war crimes. Install protection program, accept the terms of confidentiality, your data will be shared with the whole world. Agree. Be strong, be strong, be strong. Grandma, did you want your granddaughter to be strong when you invented only the happy endings for your fairy tales? I regret the white dress the most, in which I was happy. The sky covered with chestnut blossoms, the air defense of my peaceful life. White phosphorus, hell fireworks, 100 shades of white turning red and black, the flag of my country's pain. In my jacket pocket, a chestnut, surprise greeting from home. We were told, export only most valuable. But how to take out 3,548 square kilometers of love if I didn't take out even one white dress? Column, permanent return.
The close ones are far, but eternity is close. It's not a blitzkrieg. I woke up to hear the war. First, explosions, and rolled over again. We went to the store to get our predictions. Hence, thanks our air defense. Russophobia. Russophobia. Russophobia is neither a heart disease nor a disorder. The sky is on fire. The city thunders and roars. These are just May storms. When going to bed, I don't brush my teeth until the air raid siren. The last avatars take the empty bottles back to buy Bayraktars. Ukrainian steppe listens to dubstep all night in active headphones. A month, blossom comes. 2 months, green leaves on the trees. This spring's depressing. The human remains is all Diogenes has found with the candle by day. autumn, and war. The rain falls and falls without ever rising up. Those who marched that day up the Institutska street came to the sky straight. Life is no longer the same, but the way to the afterlife is fine. No one was deathless in the family. No one came back from the war. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura and Hannah and Veronica and Joe and Don for laying the sound underneath. A beautiful and sobering, sublime collection of words and sounds. With what thoughts you have or what is in your heart, you are welcome now to ask questions of our presenters. I'm mindful of people's time, but I also want to give you an opportunity to respond if you like. And we have students with microphones, so if you would raise your hand, I can call upon you and they'll find you and bring you a microphone so you can ask your questions. James.
First of all, thank you all for being here and for taking the time to share this with us. It's been a wonderful experience. My question is, how has the arts and the humanities helped you all to cope with this experience?
Okay, well, you know, that's a very good question, because it also relates to the question of why do we need art during wartime, right? Why do we need, these posters of poetry or whatever? I'm a translator, and I'm working mostly with fiction. And I can give this very personal example of how literature helped me in the first months of the war. So I was working on this children's book back in February, like in January and then in February. It was a chapter book for the middle grade by the British author Lisa Thompson. And then, the large-scale war broke out all of a sudden, and everything became so chaotic and unpredictable, and you lose everything. You lose your bearing, you don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, you lose your sense of safety and everything. And I had all the right in the world to say to the publisher that no, I cannot finish this book because I cannot think, I cannot concentrate on my translation when I read all these horrible news, and when I'm trying to think what should I do and where should I take my kids to safety and so on. But I persevered, and I didn't give up. And actually that book, that translation that I kept working on until the end of March and into early April, somehow helped me keep my sanity in those first few months, because it was a piece of this old previous life. And when I concentrated on my translation, somehow those news and all those events didn't exist for that hour or for those 2 hours while I was still working on it. And it was removed so far from what was going on in the real world that it just helped me cope with this initial shock of the first months. And I know, for a fact, that this was what many of other translators and writers and poets and artists have experienced and still experience, that art functions as a kind of self-therapy for you, as a kind of grounding of keeping you sane when the world around you is going insane. And then, of course, we come to all of these other functions of art as a documentation, as a reflection, as, just sharing your experience. But it's also a great coping mechanism, at least for me.
Yeah, as for me, March 2022 maybe was the hardest month, perhaps in my whole life. I had to take my kids and leave Ukraine, and we went to Germany first. And there I started to translate cartoons for kids. At the very beginning it was crazy because the world around me didn't look like a cartoon or like something pleasant and happy, of course. But then I realized that it helps me to keep moving, to do something at least. And I actually donated all the money I had from this work at the time. But also, being a translator, I noticed that, as you know, translators are the readers first of all, maybe the most attentive readers. And I noticed that my reading experience changed a lot, because I couldn't read novels, I couldn't read fiction, while actually I do love reading fiction. I just couldn't do that at the time. But it happened so that I could read poetry. And last spring, I read so many different poems, maybe because of the rhythm, maybe because of the short form, but they maybe were my appeal at the time. And also, when you see people sharing their arts on social media, for example, you have a feeling of a connection, of a network. And you understand that Ukrainians are together in this terrible moment of history. And definitely art maybe saves our mind this time, because art is a tool, and with this tool we can spread the word and make it effectively. And actually the idea of this exhibit, as we already mentioned, was about spreading the information in an artistic way. And we understood that we can combine actually our interests, art, and our responsibility to inform people. If we are abroad now, we are not at home, we have to do this all the time, we have to inform people and and share our experience in a way it can work.
Yeah, I would also briefly add to this. Before the full-scale invasion, I compiled an anthology of American poetry. I considered it my hobby to translate American poetry into Ukrainian. I was a Fulbright scholar back to 2017 to 2018, and this project of American poetry in Ukrainian translation appeared a couple of years ago, and I was working with pleasure on it, but after the full-scale invasion, my priorities, so to say, changed drastically, and I began to be attracted more and more closely to Ukrainian poetry as an academic both and as a translator. For example, in summer 2022, we conducted, we held the All-Ukrainian Symposium under the title Muses Are Not Silent, and the academics and the artists united and conducted this grandiose event for the whole week. And I realized that poetry can help us survive. Of course, poetry cannot kill, but it can heal. It can help us go through this traumatic experience and keep our minds, so to say, safe. And now I'm concentrated on translating Ukrainian poetry written after February 24 into English with all my passion and ability and skills. And I am compiling now, well, like drawing aside the previous project, I'm compiling an anthology of Ukrainian women's poetry written after February 24. And I, as an academic, I'm also concentrated on studying the digital folklore genre and field of Ukrainian creativity. And I've already written a couple of academic articles on Ukrainians' cyber war, on the digital war of Ukrainians, on their creative approaches like the one that we represent here today in their existential war for survival.
We can take one more question. Please.
The theme of the afternoon is Our Fire is Stronger Than Your Bombs. Where does this fire come from in the Ukrainian people, and how do you sustain this fire given the unjust wrath that has been perpetuated on your nation?
Well, I could say that this fire, it comes from within, just from our history. This is not a new war. It's not even the war that started back in 2014. It's been going on and off for the past 300 years, And I think that our history, the heroic deeds of the previous generations, of people who fought for Ukrainian independence in the early 20th century, for all, the fire of all Ukrainian intellectuals and artists of the 19th century and 18th century and back in history. These are people on whose shoulders we are standing now, and people who give fire to us today. This resilience, that's why, I got this question today, how come that Ukrainians, the whole world thought that you would fail in 3 days, and you did not? How come? And I said, well, because it was never a question for us. I mean, we never even doubted that we would hold out because we know history. So this is where our fire comes from. That's true.
Okay. Our old New Hampshire friend Robert Frost said that poetry is a way of helping us remember what it would impoverish us to forget. And I just want to say the images that you brought to us and the words that you shared with us and the witness of your courage has kept us from the poverty of forgetting. So Lada and Hannah and Veronica, thank you so very, very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank also Joe and Don for helping us to hear those words so powerfully, for the punctuation and harmony of your music, and also Jania and Anna for joining us from afar and their courage and witness and as artists for this event. And Michael and Anne for helping pull all of this together. I thank you, and I thank all of you for being here tonight, and that you carry away probably with a heavier but a fuller heart. So thank you very much for being here, and have a good evening, everyone.